Get a sneak peek at Disney's newest theme park.
Disney's California Adventure.
Right next to Disneyland in California.
Right next door to Disneyland.
Disneyland.
Located right next door to Disneyland in California.
Mountains, beaches,
Hollywood sets.
the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's all California.
And it's all California. One incredible state.
Welcome to our very special look inside Disney's newest theme park, Disney's California Adventure, right next to Disneyland in California.
Disney's California Adventure opened to the public on February 8, 2001. The nearly 25-year history of the park has been tumultuous, to say the least, with its development plagued by budget cuts, last-minute redesigns, and insider humor. It's no wonder that just 11 years after the park opened, Disney invested over $2 billion into a remodel. A second chance for Disneyland's ugly stepchild. But there's one ride that stands above the rest in its mediocrity. A ride that makes you wonder, is this really the same team that created the only good park on opening day? And yes it was. This is the story of Disney's worst attraction and how it might have been saved if it weren't for the untimely death of Her Royal Highness Diana, Princess of Wales. How exactly does Princess Diana's death tie into one of the worst designs ever dreamed up by Walt Disney Imagineering? Well, Julio, get the stretch. Because today, we're diving into the bizarre history behind Superstar Limo, Disneyland Resort's worst attraction. Hey guys, I thought I would do this unscripted, and also my fat ass cat just jumped on the bed.
Hello,
hey,
Bozo.
What's going on? You gonna meow for the camera? Move the mic. You can see him. Hey, bud. How are you? Hopefully he doesn't meow too much. Anyway, my name is Laura, and today we're going to be diving into the history of Superstar Limo. I don't have any sponsors yet. I wish I did. But you know how it is with brand new YouTube channels. I can't prove that anyone's going to watch them. So the best thing you guys can do to help support the channel right now is I have some Amazon links down in the description as always, which has links to all my setup. I sell graded and ungraded Pokemon cards on eBay. So if you're interested, I just did a set of Terrestrial Festival cards, which is the Japanese version of Prismatic Evolutions. My wife sells magic cards on her Mercari and her eBay store as well, which I've also linked in the descriptions. But honestly, the most important thing that I could get from you guys right now is to share these videos around to anybody you think might enjoy them, to like, subscribe, and leave comments on any and all of the videos that you enjoy, and just keep watching and keep supporting, and hopefully we'll get there and we'll get to a point where I can monetize my channel and I can keep making content for you guys like this full time, which would be amazing. That's my dream here. The goal right now is to let Laura delete her LinkedIn, because I'm tired of emails and I'm tired of LinkedIn and I don't like it. But if you guys like my videos enough, then I don't have to deal with it anymore. And with that being said, driver, let's roll up the partition, please. And we'll get right back into the history of Disney's California Adventure, Superstar Limo, and one disastrous redesign caused by the death of none other than Princess Diana. Though I'm sure it needs no introduction, Disneyland Park opened to the public on July 17, 1955 in Anaheim, California. Predicting the future habits of Team Disney Anaheim, Disneyland's opening was rushed and difficult. In what would later become known as Black Sunday, more than 28,000 guests showed up, despite only 11,000 guests being invited. Women's shoes poked holes into the not quite yet set pavement that had warmed in the hot summer California sun, and guests found drinking fountains dry, still yet to be hooked up. In what would later become their signature, Disney attempted to make it right by providing guests with free water bottles and moccasin sandals for the ladies whose shoes had been ruined by the hot tarmac. The moccasin sandals were sourced from the Indian village land of the park, which is a real thing that it did have. It's a whole other video. Despite the disastrous opening, guests adored Disneyland, and it became a must-visit tourist destination for California locals and international visitors alike. Fast forward 40 years to 1995, and the Walt Disney Company is in a much different place than it was in the 50s. The Parks Division, as it would become known, had already expanded east into Florida and further yet still into Tokyo in 1983. Despite the Japanese resort's gangbuster success, the company as a whole was not doing well by the following year.
The theme park gods seemed to smile on Tokyo Disney Sea. The stars aligned between concept, budget, and guest satisfaction. But that creative freedom and financial support didn't exist back home.
After lackluster performance of some outside business ventures, the top shareholders of the business sought to oust President Ron W. Miller and replace him with the joint leadership with Michael Eisner as CEO and Frank Wells as president. The latter half of the 80s and the first half of the 90s were good years for Disney. Eisner ushered in something that would later be referred to as the Disney Renaissance, which helped fund part 2 of his plan, the Disney Decade. The Disney Decade could be an entire video on its own, but the important thing we need to know here is that the Disney Decade involved expanding the parks into Europe. I know some of you know where this is going, but bear with me. Disneyland Paris, or as it was known in 1992, Euro Disneyland, opened to, shall we say, lackluster success. Located not in Paris, but how far from Paris is Disneyland Paris by car? What city is Disneyland Paris actually in? Located not in Paris, but a small town about 40 kilometers or 25 miles away, Euro Disneyland just didn't provide the experiences that French locals or Parisian tourists were looking for. And you had to drive like 45 minutes to get there, and I don't want to drive in France. Does anyone want to drive in France? You could probably take the train. Let's be real. They're civilized there. I'm like fucking here. With incentive to make money on the cheap, and Michael Eisner's creative moral compass and business partner Frank Wells dead in a helicopter crash, Michael Eisner set his sights on the only target he had left: the Disneyland parking lot. For those of you who are not locals but have visited Disneyland before, something that might have surprised you is the actual location of the world's most famous theme park. It's settled snugly in, frankly, a weird part of Anaheim, which, other than Disneyland, really isn't the tourist destination that Orange County desperately wants it to be. It's got a high school on one side and like a housing development on the other, which is why they have to get the fireworks off by 9:35, otherwise they'll be fined by the city of Anaheim because of the noise ordinance. Disneyland is basically boxed in with little opportunity for expansion or acquisition of new land, which wasn't financially an option for the company in the 90s.
Michael's mandate was really clear. It was, we want to build a second park in Anaheim, but the infrastructure the city provided outside of our four walls was not very good and was frankly decaying.
This is where the parking lot comes in. Eisner was bothered by the fact that though California itself is a major tourist destination globally, people only spent like a day at Disneyland max. With a newly acquired hotel, which is a longer story, Defunctland has a really great video on it if you want to know more. The Disneyland Hotel wasn't originally owned by Disney, and they didn't acquire it until the late 80s. Eisner wanted to make Disneyland into the Disneyland Resort, a multi-day vacation destination for families that included theme parks, shopping, dining, and world-class hotels. World-class hotels that were inspired by the famed arts and crafts movement of California.
Just beyond it is Disney's Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, inspired by the famed arts and crafts movement in California.
I've never heard of the arts and crafts movement. It's not famous. I went to art school in California and we never talked about it once. I know I'm completely glossing over Westcott.
And take your shoes off and stroll the boulevards at 2 in the morning and stop in a little wine tasting shop for a nightcap.
But this video is about things that were. Sorry, Tony. We'll get you in the next one.
I have several disappointments, but that one, of all the things I've been passionate about that didn't get built, is at the top.
Back to the summer of 1995, and Michael Eisner had gathered his Imagineers and had them do one last epic jam session to save the company. Let's get all our best talent in a room and let them blue sky ideas of what we could build as a second gate for Disneyland, a companion to the greatest theme park ever built, on a budget.
It wasn't a creative issue. It was about how can this thing get scaled back to a level that the company felt we could move forward prudently and make money.
Michael picked none of these.
Triple kill!
And instead decided that if guests wanted to see all of what California had to offer, why not just build smaller, shittier versions of them here? That way they never have to leave the comfort of Anaheim, except to go to and from the closest international airport, which is about an hour by car on any given day. Work with what you got, okay? And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dreamers of all ages, is how we came to have Disney's, the apostrophe is important and will come up later, California Adventure. A California-themed theme park in California. Now, it's not the first time a theme park has been based off the place that it's in. That's a fairly common theme for parks in general. But it is the first time that it was specifically done in order to poach tourists from other local tourist attractions. Usually you either work in tandem with the surrounding area, or you're building the smaller, shittier version further away, somewhere like Vegas.
We stole the Statue of Liberty! The small one from Las Vegas.
Nevertheless, construction began 3 years later on January 22nd, 1998. In the interim 3 years, plans for the park and its attractions were drawn up. One area of the park, what is today known as Hollywoodland, creative, would have its anchor attraction designed to resemble the theme building at LAX. The signature attraction would be hosted by none other than Michael Eisner himself. A longtime veteran of the entertainment industry, a ride full of insider jokes and tongue-in-cheek humor was right up Michael's alley. The original version of the ride would have featured Michael Eisner greeting guests as they arrived at Los Angeles International Airport, reminding us that we have yet to sign our big contract with Disney. Eisner would be waiting at the Grauman's Chinese Theater and implore guests to not do anything that would ruin our reputation, like flashing the camera. You see, the paparazzi was out in force tonight. Or today, if you're riding, at like 10 o'clock in the morning when the park opens. Guests would board their limo, whose driver knows a few shortcuts, and from here they would embark on, quote, a wild ride through Hollywood. To be clear, this wasn't a clone of Rock and Roller Coaster at Disney's MGM Studios, now Hollywood Studios. There were never plans to put, a B&M hypercoaster at California Adventure. The ride system that was planned was likely something closer to Indiana Jones or even something like Test Track. A ride system that actually has a current home at Disney, note the lack of apostrophe, California Adventure, in the form of Radiator Springs Racers. Guests would have whizzed past famous Hollywood signs and gags. Gags like Elvis farting, only for you to speed around him and find out that he's just putting mustard on a hot dog. Oh, thank you very much. I found this description for the original ride on Jim Hill Media, which is an incredible resource for all things Disney Parks history. And in the very next paragraph, after the farting Elvis gag, Jim goes on to say that veteran Imagineers John Horney? Can I even say that on YouTube? Veteran Imagineers John Horney and Rennie Marquez really did a superb job with the original version of this attraction, creating a storyline that was littered with gags that were sure to play to both adults and children. But the Elvis gag is the only one cited, so I guess we're just gonna have to take his word for it. Guests would then exit their limo into Grauman's Chinese Theater, the gift shop,
Nice.
where they could purchase their on-ride photo in the form of a fake tabloid cover. Their contract, of course, was null and void. You failed to evade the paparazzi, which, as we all know, famously means you're banned from Hollywood forever. Better luck next time, kid. You get nothing. You lose.
Stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
However, as the story goes, midway through building the ride, something terrible would happen. Something that would change the fate of Superstar Limo permanently. Her Royal Highness, Diana, Princess of Wales, was killed in a car accident when her limo driver lost control of the vehicle while evading the paparazzi. After her death, the ride, now in incredibly poor taste, had to be swiftly rethemed, with most of the existing version of the ride having to be ripped out and things redone hastily and on the cheap, as legend would have it.
Then you end up with Princess Diana dying right midway while the project is being installed. And suddenly paparazzi are like, that's a really bad theme. Well, you're almost done. What do you got to do? So now it turns into, you're going to be a star, and now it's an agent, but all the figures are these grotesque kind of like, it just didn't work.
This is a very famous legend in the Disney Parks community, and it's bound to come up almost any time this ride is mentioned, or sometimes even California Adventure in general. But here's the thing, guys. I don't think that it had as much of an impact on the ride as people think it does. I think the reports of how much Princess Diana's death directly affected how shitty the ride ended up being are greatly exaggerated. I don't think we can blame this one on her, you guys. What? There's just no possible way that Superstar Limo's construction could have been impacted in any way by Princess Diana's death. If we look at this handy timeline of events I've created, Michael Eisner and company developed the concept for Disney's California Adventure in mid-1995. Princess Diana died August 31st, 1997. They didn't even break ground on DCA until January of the following year, 1998. It's true, a redesign of the attraction did take place, and it was motivated by Princess Diana's death. I'm not trying to say that that didn't happen, but I just don't think the story told in the Imagineering story is the entire truth. Instead of a slapdash repair job, what actually happened was Superstar Limo was more or less doomed from the start. In the wake of Princess Diana's death, the plans for Superstar Limo were put on hold indefinitely. Ideas of what to do about that entire region of the park were discussed. One idea that was tossed around was just simply waiting until the general public forgot about the circumstances surrounding Princess Diana's death. Cold, but practical. It probably would have worked too, especially considering Rock and Roller Coaster, a ride with a very similar theme, opened not even a year after Princess Di's death, in April of '98. And I've never really heard anyone talk about the ride in that context. You're not really on limos, but you kinda are. And it is Hollywood, but there's no paparazzi, so maybe that's why. Other options included cloning rides from MGM Studios, DCA's half-sister back east. Rides like Tower of Terror or the Great Movie Ride were thrown around, the latter of which ended up finding a home a couple years later. It still stands today as Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But the financial reality was such that an e-ticket was no longer feasible. Something cheaper would have to be considered. And it wasn't going to be Superstar Limo, but at Michael Eisner's behest, the Imagineers tried one last time to salvage the concept. Changes would have to be made. All references to the paparazzi were summarily removed. Also, in order to ensure that absolutely no one would ever draw a connection between this ride and Princess Diana's death, the limousines would have to traverse the attraction incredibly slowly. To compensate for the slower movement, more and more and more unfunny Hollywood gags were added to literally every square inch of the attraction. Worse yet, since everyone depicted were real people, to save on cash, they had to use celebrities who either already had a deal with Disney or were part of the recently acquired ABC. Legend has it that most of the Imagineers knew that what they were working on was going to go over about as well as a wet fart. But Eisner loved the concept and refused to let Imagineering pull the plug on the attraction.
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die.
He must have known that it wasn't great, though, because he did remove himself from the attraction. The celebrities that were featured in Superstar Limo were Regis Philbin, Melanie Griffith, Antonio Banderas, Tim Allen.
Hold your sides, everyone. It's Funny Man Tim Allen.
That's Tim Allen.
Cindy Crawford, Drew Carey, Jackie Chan, Cher, and for her second appearance on opening day and third overall in a SoCal theme park, Whoopi Goldberg. As I alluded to earlier, Superstar Limo was not well received, with one notable exception. Me! I was 6 when California Adventure opened, and I loved this ride. I loved this ride so much. I loved the purple sparkly cars, and I loved how bright and colorful everything was, because I didn't understand anything anyway, because I was a little kid. And then after that, I would just beg and beg and beg to go on the ride, but it was never open. And that's because it closed less than a year after it opened. Superstar Limo was so poorly received that Disney pulled the plug on the attraction before they even had a plan with what they were going to do for the space. They shuttered it. Forever. The overall guest experience was going to be better if they never knew this attraction ever existed. I won't beleaguer you with the bad ideas that Imagineering came up with in order to fix Superstar Limo, but please know that 2 alternative titles that were proposed was Goofy's Superstar Limo and Miss Piggy's Superstar Limo. The latter of which would have involved reopening the ride as is and installing temporary scenes of the Muppets, renovating the ride while commenting on how terrible it was. What the fuck? Thankfully, neither of these versions of the ride were ever built. And instead, the Superstar Limo facade sat dark for 4 long years before reopening as Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue, which is... It's a perfectly fine dark ride. It's a perfectly fine book report dark ride retelling of the first movie. It's not the best. It smells like ginger in there, though, you know? It could be a lot worse. And it was previously. With California Adventure not performing to expectations for the first several years of the park's life...
Opening day, February 8th, 2001. Expectations are high and attendance is low.
The retheme of Monsters, Inc. also had to be done on a limited budget. All of the audio animatronic figures were retained, and most of the new figures were relatively low motion figures. Actually, honestly, I think that the famous transformation of the celebrities into the CDA agents is quite genius. They all retain their original poses as well, which makes them really easy to spot. Here we've got Regis Philbin, Melanie Griffith, Antonio Banderas, Hold Your Sides, It's Funny Man, Tim Allen, Cindy Crawford, Drew Carey, Jackie Chan, Cher, and Whoopi. Superstar Limo wasn't the only thing to get a makeover at California Adventure, however. After years of disappointing attendance and low reviews from park guests, Disney finally admitted defeat and poured $2 billion into fixing California Adventure. With Eisner out and Iger in, the park was completely overhauled. Buena Vista Street replaced Sunshine Plaza, and Carthay Circle Theater took the place of the Hubcap. Cars Land brought in a much-needed e-ticket, and the overall theme of the park was shifted from California but worse to Walt Disney's California. And to mark that grand transformation, this important shift from a present-day theme to a more traditional Main Street, they decided to rename the park. Gone was the apostrophe. What was once Disney's California Adventure became simply Disney California Adventure. A subtle shift, some may say too subtle, but a poetic one. One that ushered in an era of sweeping change for the better to the struggling theme park. It's a shame that they just kind of left the Superstar Limo animatronics in there, though, huh? So, at the end of the day, was Superstar Limo really the worst attraction that Disney's ever built? Yeah, probably. I think so. Was it all Princess Diana's fault, as legend would have it? Not quite, but she definitely did have an impact. I think Superstar Limo is more than that. I think it's emblematic of everything that went wrong with Disney's California Adventure as a whole. They were both built on the cheap, with a tacky theme, full of insider jokes and industry humor, and just something that couldn't hold a candle to the masterpiece next door.
What we really had was locals who love Disneyland, for good reason, basically faced with a choice. Are you going to go to Disneyland or to California Adventure, equally priced, one with 1/3 as many attractions, and fewer characters and things that were intentional on our part to differentiate it. And that's a competition that California Adventure couldn't win.
And while its replacement isn't perfect, I do think that it's a massive upgrade to what was there before. And so, my friends, the next time you find yourself at Disney California Adventure, maybe take a moment to pay your respects to a ride so bad it didn't even last an entire year. And just know that the headless, robotic corpses of 9 animatronic celebrities are still in there underneath those yellow jumpsuits. Thank you so much for watching today's video and going with me on this journey, uncovering the secrets of Disneyland's worst ride, Superstar Limo. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, ring that bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video, leave a like and a comment, and I'll see you all in the next one. Huge shout out to all my patrons. Thank you so much. See ya.
Okay, boss.
Okay, boss. You know, Mickey, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful theme park.
You betcha.